Sometimes history changes because of great ideas. Sometimes it changes because of great disasters. And sometimes it changes because one extraordinary individual appears at exactly the moment a civilization is beginning to fracture. By the middle of the 1st century BC, the Roman Republic had survived for nearly 500 years. Its institutions still stood. The Senate still met. Consuls were still elected. Laws were still debated. To an outside observer, the Republic appeared stable. But appearances can be deceiving. The constitutional system designed for a city-state now governed territories stretching from Spain to Syria. Elections had become increasingly influenced by wealth and patronage. Ambitious generals commanded armies more loyal to them than to the Senate. Political violence had become almost routine. Rome had become too large for the system that had once made it great. Into this unstable world stepped a man whose name would become almost synonymous with power itself: Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar was born around 100 BC into the ancient Julian family, one of Rome's oldest patrician houses. Although his lineage was prestigious, his immediate family was not among the wealthiest or most politically influential. The Julii proudly claimed descent from Julius, the son of the Trojan hero Aeneas, and therefore, through legend, from the goddess Venus herself. Like many noble Roman families, myth and ancestry were woven together to reinforce political identity. As a young man, Caesar came of age during one of the Republic's darkest periods. He witnessed the dictatorship of Sulla, the proscriptions, and the brutal consequences of civil war. Those experiences shaped him. They also nearly ended his career before it began. Because Caesar was connected through marriage to supporters of Gaius Marius, Sulla demanded that he divorce his wife, Cornelia. Caesar refused. The decision forced him into hiding. Ancient writers later claimed that Sulla reluctantly spared the young nobleman's life, warning his supporters that, "In this Caesar there are many Mariuses." Whether those exact words were spoken is impossible to verify, but later historians preserved the story because it captured something many believed in hindsight. Even Sulla may have sensed Caesar's extraordinary potential. Over the following decades, Caesar steadily climbed Rome's political ladder. He served in military campaigns, studied rhetoric, held various public offices, earned a reputation as an exceptional speaker. But ambition alone could not overcome one enormous obstacle. Politics in Rome was astonishingly expensive. Election campaigns required lavish public games, generous donations, and influential allies. Caesar accumulated enormous debts in pursuit of public office. Many contemporaries believed he was gambling recklessly. Instead, he was investing in his future. He understood that popularity could become a form of political capital. In 60 BC, Caesar forged one of the most influential political alliances in Roman history. Modern historians call it the First Triumvirate. It was not an official institution. It was a private agreement among three exceptionally powerful men: Caesar, Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, known to history simply as Pompey the Great, Rome's most celebrated military commander, and Marcus Licinius Crassus, reputedly the wealthiest man in the Republic. Each possessed something the others needed. Pompey sought land for his veterans and recognition for his eastern campaigns. Crassus desired greater political influence and financial opportunities. Caesar needed support to secure the consulship and future military command. Together, they dominated Roman politics. The Senate could oppose one powerful statesman. It struggled against three acting in concert. After serving as consul in 59 BC, Caesar received command of Roman provinces in Gaul. What followed transformed both his career and Roman history. For nearly a decade, Caesar campaigned across territories corresponding roughly to modern France, Belgium, parts of Germany, and beyond. The Gallic Wars became a series of remarkably successful military campaigns. Ancient estimates of casualties vary dramatically and should be treated with caution. Caesar himself, writing in his Commentari de Bello Gallico, Commentaries on the Gallic War, naturally presented events in ways favorable to his own reputation. His account remains one of the most valuable surviving sources for the period, yet historians also recognize it as a work of political self-promotion. Archaeology has confirmed many locations, fortifications, and battles described in Caesar's writings, while also helping scholars evaluate his claims more critically. Whatever the precise numbers, the strategic achievements were undeniable. Dozens of Gallic tribes were defeated or incorporated. Roman influence expanded to the Atlantic Ocean. Caesar crossed the Rhine, demonstrating that even the forests of Germania lay within Rome's reach. Twice, he launched expeditions across the English Channel into Britain. Although these invasions produced no permanent conquest, they carried enormous symbolic significance. Rome had reached lands many Mediterranean peoples considered mysterious and remote. Each victory increased Caesar's prestige. Each triumph enriched his soldiers. Most importantly, each campaign strengthened the bond between commander and army. His legions were no longer simply Roman soldiers. They were Caesar's soldiers. Back in Rome, the political alliance that had secured Caesar's rise slowly unraveled. Crassus was killed in 53 BC during the disastrous Battle of Carrhae against the Parthian Empire, one of Rome's greatest eastern rivals. His death removed the balance that had held the triumvirate together. At the same time, Caesar's daughter Julia, who had married Pompey and helped unite the two men politically, also died. Personal tragedy became political instability. Pompey gradually aligned himself more closely with the Senate. Many senators viewed Caesar's growing popularity with alarm. They feared that a victorious general commanding loyal legions posed an existential threat to republican government. Their concerns were not entirely unfounded. Caesar, meanwhile, feared prosecution if he surrendered his command and returned to Rome as a private citizen. The standoff became increasingly dangerous. Compromise grew less likely. In early 49 BC, the Senate issued a clear demand. Caesar was to disband his army before entering Italy. He faced a choice: obey the Senate and risk political ruin, or defy it and risk civil war. Standing on the banks of the small Rubicon River, which marked the legal boundary his army could not cross under arms, Caesar made his decision. Ancient historian Suetonius records that Caesar declared, "The die is cast." Whether those exact words were spoken remains debated. Some ancient sources preserve slightly different versions, possibly quoting a Greek phrase from a theatrical play. What matters is the decision itself. Caesar crossed the Rubicon. With that single act, centuries of republican tradition were broken. Civil war became inevitable. Pompey and many senators fled south before eventually crossing to Greece, believing they could regroup and raise overwhelming forces. Caesar moved with astonishing speed. He secured Italy with minimal resistance, campaigned successfully in Spain, then pursued Pompey across the Adriatic. The decisive confrontation came in 48 BC at the Battle of Pharsalus. Despite facing a numerically larger army, Caesar's tactical flexibility once again proved decisive. Pompey's forces collapsed. The once great commander fled to Egypt. There, seeking favor with Caesar, advisors to the young King Ptolemy XIII murdered Pompey before Caesar could arrive. Ancient writers describe Caesar weeping upon seeing the severed head of his former ally. Whether this reaction reflected genuine grief, political calculation, or both remains uncertain. What is clear is that Pompey's death did not end Caesar's struggles. Instead, it drew him into the complex dynastic politics of Egypt. There, he encountered one of history's most remarkable rulers. A young queen whose intelligence, ambition, and political skill would captivate Rome's most powerful man. Her name was Cleopatra VII. Their alliance would reshape the Eastern Mediterranean. It would also set the stage for the Republic's final act. Republics rarely die in a single dramatic moment. They fade through a series of decisions that seem temporary. A law passed during a crisis. An emergency power extended a little longer. A popular leader granted one more exception. Looking back, historians can identify turning points. The people living through them usually cannot. When Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, many Romans believed they were fighting one more civil war. Few realized they were witnessing the final chapter of the Roman Republic. The empire had not yet been declared, but its foundations were already being laid. After the Battle of Pharsalus, Caesar pursued Pompey to Egypt, where he found the once great general already dead. Instead of victory, he encountered chaos. The Ptolemaic kingdom was locked in its own civil war. Two siblings claimed the throne: King Ptolemy XIII, still a teenager, and his older sister, Cleopatra VII. Few rulers have inspired as much fascination as Cleopatra. Ancient Roman writers often portrayed her as a seductive queen whose beauty ensnared powerful men. Modern historians, however, paint a more nuanced picture. While contemporary coins suggest she did not necessarily fit later ideals of physical beauty, surviving evidence consistently emphasizes her extraordinary intelligence, education, and political ability. She reportedly spoke multiple languages, understood diplomacy, mastered economics, and ruled one of the wealthiest kingdoms in the Mediterranean. Her greatest weapon was not charm, it was strategy. According to one famous story preserved by ancient writers, Cleopatra secretly entered Caesar's residence wrapped inside a carpet, or perhaps a linen sack, smuggled past palace guards. Whether every detail is accurate remains uncertain. What is certain is that Caesar chose to support Cleopatra's claim to the throne. Together they defeated Ptolemy's forces during the Alexandrian War. Cleopatra became queen once again. Soon afterward, she gave birth to a son known as Caesarion, whom she claimed was Caesar's child. The relationship would later become one of the most politically explosive alliances in Roman history. Although Caesar lingered in Egypt, his work elsewhere remained unfinished. Opposition continued across the Republic. In North Africa, supporters of Pompey assembled new armies. Later, resistance emerged in Spain. Caesar responded with his characteristic speed. One campaign followed another, at the Battle of Thapsus. Then Munda. Each victory eliminated another center of resistance. By 45 BC, organized opposition had largely collapsed. For the first time in generations, one man stood above every political institution in Rome. The Senate rewarded Caesar with unprecedented honors. He was named dictator for life. His image appeared on Roman coins while he was still alive, a remarkable departure from Republican tradition. A golden chair awaited him in the Senate. Temples displayed his statues alongside those of ancient kings. To supporters, these honors reflected gratitude. To critics, they signaled something far more dangerous. Rome had overthrown its monarchy nearly 5 centuries earlier. Many now feared that another king was quietly emerging. Even though Caesar carefully avoided the title Rex, king, the distinction mattered little. Power, not terminology, alarmed his opponents. Yet Caesar's ambitions extended beyond personal authority. He also launched an extraordinary program of reform. He reorganized provincial administration, reduced corruption among governors, expanded Roman citizenship, settled veterans in new colonies, introduced debt reforms, planned vast public works. Perhaps his most enduring achievement was the reform of the calendar. The traditional Roman calendar had become hopelessly inaccurate after centuries of political manipulation and irregular adjustments. Working with Egyptian astronomers, Caesar introduced the Julian calendar in 46 BC. Its 365-day year, with an additional leap day every 4 years, proved remarkably accurate. For more than 16 centuries, much of Europe would measure time according to Caesar's reforms. Even today's Gregorian calendar is essentially a refinement of the Julian system. Caesar was not merely reshaping Roman politics, he was reshaping daily life itself. Not everyone welcomed these changes. Within the Senate, anxiety continued to grow. Some feared Caesar genuinely intended to restore monarchy. Others believed that allowing any individual to hold permanent authority threatened everything the Republic represented. Among the conspirators were men who had once fought beside Caesar, even some whom he had personally pardoned after the Civil War. Their leader became Marcus Junius Brutus. Ironically, Brutus traced his ancestry to the very family that Roman tradition credited with overthrowing the last king centuries earlier. To many conspirators, history appeared to be repeating itself. They convinced themselves they were not committing murder. They were saving the Republic. On the morning of March 15th, 44 BC, The Ides of March. Caesar entered the Senate meeting held in the theatre of Pompey. Ancient sources describe a series of warnings, a soothsayer urging caution, letters revealing the conspiracy, his wife Calpurnia reportedly pleading with him not to attend. Modern historians cannot determine how many of these stories were added later for dramatic effect. Ancient biographies often emphasized omens and symbolism. What is certain is the outcome. As Caesar took his seat, the conspirators surrounded him. One senator stepped forward under the pretense of presenting a petition. Another seized his toga. Then the knives appeared. Caesar was stabbed repeatedly. Ancient accounts differ on the number of wounds. A medical examination reportedly identified 23. Only one proved fatal. Equally debated are Caesar's famous final words. The phrase "et tu, Brute" comes not from contemporary Roman historians, but from much later literary tradition, most famously immortalized by William Shakespeare. Earlier ancient sources preserve different possibilities, including a Greek expression meaning, "You too, my child," or perhaps, Caesar said nothing at all. History cannot answer with certainty. The conspirators believed the Republic had been restored. Instead, they had created another civil war. Crowds did not celebrate. Many mourned Caesar. At his funeral, Mark Antony delivered a powerful public address. The exact wording has not survived. Shakespeare's famous speech beginning, "Friends, Romans, countrymen," is brilliant literature, not history. Yet ancient sources agree that Antony's oration inflamed public emotion. Caesar's will was read aloud. He had left money to ordinary Roman citizens. His private gardens became public parks. The man many senators had feared as a tyrant appeared, in death, astonishingly generous. Popular opinion turned rapidly against the assassins. Brutus and his fellow conspirators fled Rome. The Republic had not been saved. It had been pushed even closer to collapse. Into the growing vacuum stepped an unlikely heir. He was only 18 years old, quiet, often underestimated, frequently in poor health. His name was Gaius Octavius, better known to history as Octavian. Caesar had adopted him in his will as his legal son and principal heir. At first, few regarded the young man as a serious political contender. They would soon learn otherwise. Octavian possessed something that many experienced generals lacked: infinite patience. He understood that raw ambition frightened Romans. Power needed to appear reluctant. Step by step, alliance by alliance, battle by battle, he would eliminate every rival without ever claiming to seek absolute authority. Standing between him and supremacy were two formidable figures: Mark Antony, Caesar's trusted lieutenant, and Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. Their final confrontation would unfold not in the streets of Rome, but upon the waters of the Ionian Sea. There, at a place called Actium, the fate of the Roman world would be decided.